Welcome back, everyone. It is now time for Richard Berkling, CEO of PowerCell, to present his company. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much. So, nice to meet all of you. As always, when you do a presentation like this, it would have been much nicer to meet you and be at the same place. Having lunch together, that I understand we're all back from, having the opportunity to have a dialogue, exchange ideas and impressions, and perhaps also do some reflections to kind of elevate the common knowledge. But when times are like they are right now, I need to express my gratitude to Vator Securities for making this opportunity available for us. And hopefully I can have a good session together with you with some presentation and also some interesting questions to follow. What I like to express now is the PowerCell strategy to build a market share in this now evolving hydrogen economy that we hear so much about. The first picture here that I am presenting is something that I could spend more or less the whole presentation elaborating on, but I try to be a bit brief. This shows in just one picture the value of the hydrogen economy and fuel cells in combination with hydrogen. The fact is that we now have a rather substantial energy source from renewable energy. We have the wind parks and the solar parks. The problem with that is that they're running at limited capacity. We're not utilizing the full capacity of that investment. And that means that we are not leveraging the investment made on that side, and we are lacking the potential to store that energy and transport that energy. And there, hydrogen is a solution for that. And what you do is you add an electrolyzer to the installation of a fuel cell or solar park or a wind park. And then you can harvest the excess energy created when you have additional capacity. And then you harvest that capacity, you run it through the electrolyzer, and you can get hydrogen. And then you get full green hydrogen. That means that you have the perfect source for what we call the true zero emission energy solution. That hydrogen can then be shipped and utilized at a different location and a different time and place. And that makes the whole energy infrastructure so much more robust than the fact that when we have wind and when we have solar, we most often have excessive capacity. And if you take this perspective, you can also argue that it's not acceptable, not from a sustainability perspective, but also from an investment perspective. If you invest in solar energy and into wind energy, running that investment at a limited capacity, it's not financially viable and it's not acceptable. So having excess capacity on the electrolyzer side is actually more beneficial and more cost competitive, because then you can store the hydrogen and you can get that energy to be transported to be used later on. And the fuel cell is then the perfect energy source to transfer that hydrogen into electricity regardless of its application. You can use it at stationary power, you can use it at off-road power for excavators and mining and haulers, and you can use it in the marine application. And that's where we at PowerCell now offer a complete solution to the market to make sure that you can have a full true zero emission energy source. You can have a green alternative that is similar to the technology that we replace. Because in any technology shift, making a change is something that is difficult and challenging for the end customer. You change the way that they are operating in their process. And the benefit of the fuel cell and hydrogen is that it's so similar to the combustion engine when it comes to performance, and when it comes to the operative cycle. You can get a run time that is similar to the combustion engine. That means that you can make this transition without affecting the operative performance at your customer site. So this picture here is a simplified way of showing that yes, we can today provide full electric source without any emission gases. And if we want to comply with the Paris Agreement, we need to make sure that we're not just fossil-free. We need to go for emission-free solutions. And this is now starting to be acknowledged in all sectors and all markets. That means that we will now have stricter regulations. We are seeing a much higher proportion of renewable energy in every sector, but it's not enough. And that's where hydrogen now is getting so much recognition in the market, because you can store energy and you can use it at a different location, a different point of time. One thing that is validating this trend, which is so important, is that you now see the industry giants moving in this direction. When it comes to the automotive industry, we have the collaboration between Volvo and Daimler, where you see fierce competitors joining forces to make sure that they get access to this new technology and that they can be self-sufficient in providing energy solutions when they are replacing their combustion engines. We're also seeing the first trend that we're going away from the R&D phase of this development into more industrialized innovation. That means that we are now selling to customers that are putting our products into operating performance, not just evaluating technology or doing some initial testing. We are now in negotiation in contracts with a 15-year lifespan. So this is the kind of first indication of a true market-driven growth, and not just exploration or subsidies and funding from governments. This is a really important trend shift that we're seeing now in Q1, Q2 of 2021. If we look at PowerCell performance, we're still a small company. We are growing. We have a more or less similar operating income and cash flow to last year. All of these numbers are presented in the Q1 report. For a growing company, this is not enough. So PowerCell needs to improve our growth ambition and also growth performance. That is something that I'm pushing now for the rest of the year and also going forward. If we are to be perceived as a growing company, we need to grow sequentially, quarter by quarter, and that is an important challenge that we're taking on. So although Q1 was the best quarter in PowerCell history when it comes to sales, this is not enough, and we need to improve in this area. PowerCell, we are a leading fuel cell company. We have been doing research almost for 28 years, not 25 as it says here. Spun out from Volvo Group and introduced to the Nasdaq market in 2014. We have a massive number of shareholders, which is really good. We also have some significant shareholders in Bosch, for instance. We have a global presence, headquarters in Sweden, but we have a subsidiary in both Germany and China. And in Q1, we presented that we're going into Norway with our own entity, because Norway is a really expanding market where they're doing a lot of things right. Also a challenging market where you see customers with a maturity that we don't see everywhere. But in order for PowerCell to manage this growth that I'm talking about, we also have strategic partners that are there to support us and also function as a marketing channel. We presented Bosch as both an owner and a market channel in 2020. Previously this quarter, we presented an agreement with Hitachi ABB, and since before we have Siemens and Statkraft. All of these are giving us a presence that is larger than our own, but also a full coverage of the value chain, because in combination with these partners, we can offer the customer a complete solution and not just sell the fuel cell or the fuel cell system. We make sure that the integration for the customer is as smooth as possible, making this transition to new technology without hazard. As a company, we have a long history. We have invested for quite some time into competence, and we have an experience that is world leading. We have now an industrialized product portfolio that is ready for delivery, and we have a factory here in Gothenburg. Everybody's talking that they will launch a gigafactory in 2025 something. We have had a gigafactory capacity since 2020. What we now need to do is to sell and provide our products to the customers, but we have all the infrastructure, competence and product portfolio to actually catch this growth that we're seeing in the market and the growth potential that is out there. Because we now have a strategy that has been cleared for quite some time and that needs to kind of be reiterated for the market and also for our customers. On road, we have a collaboration with Bosch. We have a license agreement that they are representing our products onto the on-road segment, where the customer characteristics is of that sort that Bosch is a better marketing channel. Scale of economy and maturity industrialization is more of a competitive advantage than what we see in our prioritized segments, that is the off-road segment, stationary segment, and marine segment. Here we see three segments that we can serve with our own production and a capacity to adapt our products to those individual segment characteristics. Volumes can be up to a number of thousands each year, but they still have a requirement of customization and value creation very close to the customer. That means that we're not just selling the fuel cell or the fuel cell system. We are engaging with the customer to make sure that the fuel cell system is working more or less the same way as a combustion engine. As I said before, we need to replace old technology with new technology without creating too much difficulties and too much change in the operative process of these machines, stationary applications, or vessels. And there, our product portfolio and the ability we have to adapt close to the customer is a real competitive advantage compared to the rest of the market. We see that our different segments are, and this is a traditional S-curve showing maturity of the different markets. All of our segments are at the really early stage. We're seeing the first indications of a market-driven growth. That means that previously we sold something that was used for research or just field testing. Now, as I said before, we are selling to customers that are requiring 15 years of service. That means that the requirements of stability, not just on the product, but also in the offering from PowerCell over the life cycle, is different. This also creates a different business model where you sell something as a CapEx in the early stages, but you also need to make sure that you are competitive in the operating expenses as well. And since this is a breaking new ground, nobody has had a fuel cell in operation for 15 years. It's essential to do this together with the customer, making sure that we are creating value throughout the whole life cycle. And this is a really interesting challenge that we're taking on now, especially in the investments in Norway with the marine customers that we have there. Our offering, if you have a customer, if you want to go for a fuel cell solution, we make sure to minimize the technical risk, minimize R&D investment, and minimizing time to market, because we have an industrialized product portfolio. That means that we have off-the-shelf offerings optimized for the off-road segment, the marine segment, and the stationary segment, but we also have a capability to make adjustments for the customer's specific requirements without having too much investment. And this means that the customer can come to us, we can have a collaboration for a couple of months in the project, and then they can integrate this into their vehicle or vessel or stationary application. And this is a true competitive advantage. And we say it's not just enough to sell the fuel cell stack or the fuel cell system and then say good luck to the customer, because this is a new technology. And any technology shift is difficult for the customers and the operators of the process that we're selling to. So for us to engage in their process and making sure that our offering is the easiest one in the market to integrate, that will be a competitive advantage. And if we are, and when we are successful with that, we will see the growth coming from different angles. And that's why we expect to see this exponential growth that the whole market is talking about. So with our technology, we say that we have the leading fuel cell system. We have the best energy density in the market. That means that if you put in a fuel cell from PowerCell, it will require less space and less weight than compared to others. And that means that in this installation, you can have more space available for hydrogen storage. That means that your operating cycle can be longer. That means that you get a better performance and also better total cost of ownership in your production life cycle. It is compact, as I said, high density, it's durable, and it's easy to integrate. That is one of the competitive advantages that we seek for, making sure that PowerCell is renowned for being easy to collaborate with, easy to start working with. We have a scalable product portfolio. That means that we have industrialized solutions from 30 kilowatt up to now multi-megawatt solutions, and they are optimized for our different segments. And this is what we mean when we call industrialized innovation. We have industrialized solutions in our portfolio. They are industrially stable for the customer, but we can still have the ability to do innovation for the customer, because a marine application is different from an off-road application and a stationary application. And having that ability to provide that unique value for each segment is something that is really important to drive this growth. And we have started to see a lot of good initiatives in this area. So to summarize, how are we going to seize our market share in this hydrogen economy? We say that we need to grow from this industrialized innovation. That's a really important part of our strategy. The strategic partnerships with Bosch, with Hitachi ABB, Siemens and Statkraft That will drive growth as well, but we also need to grow from the existing customers. We have a rather interesting customer portfolio. We now see repetitive business in all our segments, indicating that what we're selling is actually working and providing value. But then we also need to improve our internal performance because we can do more. We should have higher ambition for growth and higher ambition for production output. And we also have an opportunity to expand the PowerCell footprint. So in the next phase, I expect to see that PowerCell is providing more on geographical market, but also more when it comes to value chain offering. So expanding PowerCell footprint is also important to seize this position in the market. So this is what we call or mean when we talk about true zero emission. We have a solution that is available today. We will drive growth together in this marketplace, and we will support the customer making their first effort to try and transform from traditional fossil combustion engines to true zero emission energy solutions. So with this, I open up for questions or comments or reflections. Hopefully we can have an interesting dialogue here.
Thank you very much, Richard. Interesting indeed. Let me start off with asking you about your partnership with ES Group that you announced just 2 weeks back.
Yep.
That's for a combined prototype with your hydrogen cells and their heat pump plats. Could you elaborate on this venture and what results or potential that you see in it?
Well, what we see, then we can go to Norway as a market. As I said, it's a really demanding market. In Norway, you see regulation in 2022 where you're not allowed to have a combustion engine at the construction site to bring down emission in the city center where you have most of the construction sites, but also to improve the environment for workers in that environment. So they need to replace that with renewable energy and emission-free solutions. And a fuel cell, one of the byproducts of a fuel cell is heat. So when you have heaters and heating fans in the construction site, the byproduct of the fuel cell is actually creating value for that process. So by combining the fans and dryers at the construction site, you actually bring down costs. And that is one of the first applications where we see the new technology not just being more expensive than the existing combustion engine. We're actually on par or even making a saving, which is a really interesting opportunity. And there, the combination between PowerCell and energy save technology is providing something that is unique to the market. And it's a combined offering that I think will serve a strong purpose for the customers.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
And last year you presented your prioritized strategic growth segments, one of which was the marine segment. And you recently also presented the Power Solution Marine System 200. And in accordance with this, that was in accordance with this strategy. And perhaps you could elaborate a bit on what this means for your business in this segment and the demand for this product.
We see now a strong demand for this. And the value to the market is that we now have something that is packaged, which is tangible for the customer. We can now say that if you want a solution starting from a 200 kilowatt, but then you can multiply them and put them in parallel. That means that you can use the same technology for a 200 kilowatt installation up to a multi-megawatt installation. We have presented a 3.2 megawatt installation. That means that it's scalable. It's not, you get a linear costs for the product. That means that the customers can more easily evaluate the technology and the products, the investment. And you can also have a predictable, I would say, cost of the life cycle, because this is an industrialized solution that we know and the customer know. So it's a way to simplify the offering to the customer and not having a unique solution or unique project for every customer. Then most customers need an integration project anyway, because these are new installations also in the vessel. But this is a way to make a product package that is more tangible and more easy for the customer to evaluate and compare to competitors.
Great. And so what would you say is the key technological innovation that you have developed?
I would say that the energy density in our solution is what is differentiating us from competitors. As we said, size and weight on our solution, you get much more performance on the same size, or you can have a smaller size to get the performance. And since real estate is expensive in any installation, it could be the stationary, it could be a vehicle, it could be a vessel. but you always have limited space. And that extra space provides space for hydrogen storage, which means, as I said, you don't need to refill. You can have a longer operating cycle. That is something that I would say is a unique value of the PowerCell offering.
Perfect. And just on a final note, what are you looking forward to in the next 12 months in terms of, reaching goals?
I want to see us grow in every segment. I want us to make sure that the customers we have, when they are transitioning into this new technology, that they experience this as being something positive, not just something they have to do because you get regulation. We should start to provide actual end user value. But then I also want to see us expand our offering. We have an opportunity to do more. With our 28 years of research in this area, we have an extensive expertise in hydrogen economy and fuel cells. And that can be applied both upstream and downstream in the value chain. And I think we also have an obligation to do that because availability of hydrogen is a limiting factor. So contributing to the infrastructure development and the supply of hydrogen, I think, is also important. So hopefully we can deliver on what we have already promised, but then we can also expand what we're doing.
Perfect. I'm looking very much to keeping an eye out PowerCell in the year to come. Best of luck on your journey, and thank you once again for presenting here today.
Thank you very much for this opportunity as well.
Thank you.
Take care.